One of my best friends when I was 14 was Matt. His family lived out in the country on the corner of an intersection adjacent to miles of cornfields. It was right on the edge of going out into the middle of nowhere. They had a wooden fenced-in backyard with a barn they used to store everything for their lawn and garden. However, there was a second story with a balcony that we turned into our hangout spot. We'd often run power up there and camp out during the summer. Well, being out there and not wanting to be holed up in the barn all night, we would usually go out in the yard, walk down the country roads at night, or go through the fields and walk the creeks. It sounds boring, but we always had a blast doing that, exploring at night with nobody around, keeping the flashlights off and adjusting our eyes to the darkness, not having to worry about cars or people being around. We always felt safe because we would always go out in groups of 6 to 8 of us. That and the farmers of the area gave us permission to go through the fields, so long as there were no crops at the time. So one fall night after the 6 of us got bored of playing video games for hours on end, we decided to go walk through the adjacent fields. It was around 11 p.m. when we decided to head out, so we threw a couple of flashlights in the backpack and headed off. It was a nice, cool night. The moon was just a sliver, and the sky didn't have a cloud in it. It was perfect. We trekked through the first field, just laughing it up and having a great time. However, all our cheer would soon turn to absolute dread. There was a creek in a ravine dividing 2 of the fields that we followed, getting further and further until Matt's house was on the horizon. At this point, we had been walking for about an hour and a half. It was going on 12:30 a.m. We decided we would walk a little further and then turn back, something we all greatly regretted. As we made our way down the creek, we noticed what looked like a stump on the other side, way up ahead in the field, maybe about 20 feet away from the creek. It was odd because we had made this journey dozens of times, and there was never a tree, let alone a stump in that field. It was still about 100 feet up the creek, but we decided to jump the creek and go check it out. The first 2, Chris and Mike, jumped over the creek, and right as Matt was getting ready to jump, my heart sank. The stump moved. As soon as I blurted out, "Wait! It just moved!" it stood up. The silhouette of a man standing in the field in the middle of nowhere was now facing us. We were all frozen. Chris and Mike jumped back over to our side of the creek, and we slowly started backing away, not looking away from the figure. It stood there for about a minute, which seemed like an eternity, then started off on a full-on sprint on the other side of the creek, heading right for us. We instantly turned around and ran as fast as we could away from the creek to the road, and went straight for Matt's house. We could vaguely make out glimpses of it from the road, just waiting for it to jump the creek and catch up with us. The adrenaline had my feet moving so fast it felt like I was floating. As we came up on the last 4-mile stretch of road before making it back, we noticed the figure had stopped, barely making out his silhouette across the field. We ran around the back of Matt's house and went straight to our loft in the barn, locking the doors behind us. A huge sigh of relief filled the air. We were safe. Shaken, we all couldn't wrap our heads around the fact that there was some psycho just crouching in a field in the middle of the night. We finally started to calm down and relax a bit. Being too afraid to leave the barn, we just decided when we had to piss, we'd piss off the balcony. As the night went on, around 2:30, Mike went to go do his business. Not 10 seconds later, he came bursting back in, his face pale white. He's fucking walking through the neighbor's backyard. At this point, I seriously thought we were going to die. Why is he following us? Why is he so persistent in finding us? What does he want? We quietly made our way down the stairs and got to the door. At this point, we had no idea where he was, so we could either wait it out and hope he didn't hear us up in the loft, or make a run for the house. We all agreed that we would be much safer behind the deadbolt of a house versus the small lock that could be kicked in on the barn. So we ran for the house, key in hand ready, praying it wouldn't get dropped on the way. Shortly after, we all piled in the back door, which leads in the garage with another door from the garage to the house. We all stood silent as we heard the gate to the fence creak open. After hearing silence, we slowly crept into the house, trying not to make a noise. Matt made his way to his parents' room as we stood still in the kitchen, peering out the window to the backyard, unfortunately only seeing darkness. He woke his parents, told them everything, and they instantly called the police. As this was going on, we all listened in horror to what sounded like someone demolishing the barn. We all hid in the living room, hoping this freak wouldn't break into the house before the police arrived. After what seemed like forever, the police showed up and stormed the backyard. Whoever it was that was after us was now gone. The barn door was kicked in. The whole upstairs looked like a tornado went through it. TV, game systems, table all smashed. And creepiest of all, the back door handle to the house had been smashed off. Thank God for the deadbolt, or we might have been hanging on meat hooks by daytime. We never slept up there again, never went on night walks, and never returned to those fields. Matt's family moved a few years later, and I've never gone back to that area. They never caught the guy, and we never saw his face. I think about it all the time. It just gives me a chill every time I think about the fact that he wasn't caught. He could still be out there. I'll never understand why he was crouched in that field in the middle of the night, a good mile at least from the nearest house, and what caused him to snap and want to get to us so badly. I really wonder if it was someone drugged up on PCP. But how did he end up there? There are so many questions that I'll never get answers to. And knowing he wasn't caught is the worst part. So, to give you a little background on this situation, I'm from a small town in northern Michigan, and there is literally nothing out there but cornfields and dirt roads. It's particularly creepy at all times, even during the day, but you can only imagine how spooky it gets at night. This happened one summer night on a day I would prefer not to remember back when I was in high school. Being from a small town, just about everyone knows everyone. All of your friends live in the area off of some random dirt road that has only 3 or 4 houses every 2 miles, so there aren't too many people to meet. My friend group is a pretty close bunch, and we all like to pull pranks on each other. Our favorite jokes involve freaking each other out. Now, as Friday rolls around and our friend Brian informs us that he wants us all to come over to his place tonight since his parents are out of town, the rest of us immediately see this as an opportunity to scare the heck out of Brian. Parents out of town. Brian is home alone, and there isn't a house nearby for miles. Perfect. The plan was decided upon by 7 of us. We were going to meet up at a crossroad near Brian's house at 11 p.m. I should mention here that there are no streetlights in my town, so the nighttime is pitch black. Park our cars on the side of the road, walk together through the cornfield that leads to his house, ring the doorbell a bunch, and then jump out and spook him the best we can. As we were talking about this and polishing out the details, I had a better idea. I should scare my friends who are trying to scare Brian. They will never see it coming. So what did I do? I grabbed an old Darth Maul costume from my brother's closet and went straight to Brian's at 11 instead of meeting up with the group. Sent a quick text that I couldn't make it, and they were going to carry out the plan without me, completely oblivious to what awaited them at Brian's. Once I got there in my costume, I decided the best place to scare my friends from would be a nearby bush on the side of his house. I thought I could jump out when I heard them walking up, and that this prank would go down in history among our group. So unsuspecting, so ingenious. I'm waiting and waiting, and time feels like it's moving so slowly. Maybe it's because I was sitting in a bush, bored. Or maybe it's because when I checked my watch, it had actually been a half-hour past when I expected them to show up. Any minute now, I keep telling myself. Any freaking minute now. Just as I'm about to give up and call them, I hear some shuffling out front. These suckers have no idea. This is going to be great, I thought. But then, boom, boom, boom. Someone is smashing on the garage. Boom, boom, boom. It keeps going. As soon as the banging stops, it sounds like they are trying to lift the garage open from the handle. Obviously, it was locked, so they moved over to the window opposite of my bush. Knock, 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 each one more violent than the last. This goes on for about 5 more minutes, until all of a sudden, it stops. Complete silence. I thought my friends were now waiting for Brian to answer the door, all freaked out, so I perched myself in the bush, ready to pounce out and scream when all of a sudden, my heart dropped. I hear a group of people coming from the cornfield directly behind me, and it's my friends, laughing and saying shh as they approach the house. They just got here. They just got here. They just got here.
I come from a family with a lot of kids my age. Siblings, cousins, family friends. We are all within 6 years of each other from the group we grew up with, a total of about 15 kids. One of the grandparents of a family friend we were very close with lived in this small town that had a ton of cornfields. It was very Midwest, really nice people, friendly neighbors, all that good stuff. We would go to the grandma's house a lot because their whole family lived in that neighborhood, so our parents would have barbecues and block parties a lot. Us kids would play everywhere, but sometimes we liked to play this game that involved the cornfield. Her house was basically set up where the backyard looked right at this huge cornfield, and to the left and behind that was this creek. We'd walk around the field along the creek and begin the game. This game was really fun because it was kind of like hide and seek but reverse. We'd all kind of spread ourselves out along the creek, and one person would get blindfolded and just run right into the cornfield. You were supposed to zigzag and get as lost as possible. It was just one field and really easy to get out of, so there was never any real danger of getting lost. But as kids, we didn't think that way. Once the person who was it was sufficiently deep into the cornfield, they'd shout as loud as they could that they were ready, and everyone would shout the person's name until they found their way out. Everyone else would really spread out at this point, some people being on one side of the field by the water and some on the other side. The last time we ever played it, I was the it. I was around 8 years old at the time. I could hear people shouting my name. Catherine? Catherine? I was laughing, running towards the voices of my family. Even though the point was to get out, it was still fun kind of running aimlessly towards different voices in the field, so that's what I did for a little bit before crouching down to take a breather. I could still hear everyone laughing, screaming, like kids do when they play, and shouting from a distance. I swear I didn't hear any rustling that was out of the ordinary in a windy cornfield, but looking back, I think I do remember a distinct rustling coming from behind me. All I know is I could hear my friends calling me, "Catherine! Catherine!" When all of a sudden from right behind me, almost directly in my left ear, I hear a man's deep voice say my name, "Catherine?" Just typing this out, remembering the sound of the voice, completely scares the crap out of me. I book it out of there, I run as fast as I can, screaming at the top of my lungs the entire way, and join everyone back at the creek. I was kind of a dramatic kid, so I don't think anyone really took me that seriously, and I basically forgot about the whole instance. It was just so frightening, I don't think I've ever experienced such complete dread since then. My whole body felt like ice, like someone had dumped a glass of cold water down my spine. I could feel the fear in my fingernails.